Okie dokie. So, I'm not sure, I forget what I put in the last update video, but I'm just gonna work backwards a little bit. So the most critical recent will be first. Okay, so let me turn this down a little bit. And, so, oh no, what's going on here? I appear to have changed something that has affected something I didn't expect. So that's a bug I'll have to fix. It's not really a bug. So here we go. Import levels pack. So now, when the game is downloaded, let me turn on a display capture. Okay. Okay. No. Wrong one. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay. And then if I pop open this right here, when you download and unzip the download, you'll get, and you open that file folder, in there will be this starter levels _levels pack. So this is just some levels, that way the game has some playable content. However, you can make your own levels pack. Okay, so the way to do that is you can generate an empty pack folder, or you can just go ahead and create a new folder right in here. And the rules are that the end of the file name has to be _LVL, this has to be capital SPK, levels pack. So if I delete this, so here, well, I don't need to delete it. If I go into the game here and I import a levels pack menu, so now you see that levels pack is in there. And if I generate one called my levels pack, and I generate this empty folder, this name right here. Alright, so now I have to go back to the menu to see it. So this name that I typed right here, now it's the name, and if you go to the folder, here it is. So then you have to manually put your exported levels in there. So let's say I wanted to put some levels in here. So I'm going to go to the drone menu, and I'm going to go to ISS exterior, and then I'm going to load my level. We'll just say extra 2. Let's try that one. Okay, so now my level, did it load? I don't even know where the level is. Oh, there's a heart over there. So that means it's over here, because I remember this one. Okay, here we are. So now my level has loaded, and you can see it there. And if I export, so now that I've loaded it, and it's in the scene, I can export it. And then I'll choose my export name, same one as I did, and if I export it, and then I go back here to the file folder where the application is, has to be in this application folder. Now you can see I have this export file right here, and inside of here is the files, and then this is the level itself, the scene that it belongs in. And you can see there's 3 files, but the only one that needs to be there is .crs. The .race one is if you've saved a race, then it'll be there. This will be the placed objects, this will be the race, and this will be the race settings. So that's why the STG. So if it's going to be a line race, 3 laps, it's going to have timer on reset, or a timer once you go through the first gate, or no timer, or a manual timer. That'll be here in this file. And then if you have, so the reason that there's 3 files like this is because it's just, I don't know how to program very well, and this is the easiest way for me to make sure that if I make changes in the future, all of this will be backwards compatible. So if you build a level and then in the future I change the way that the save system works to add more functionality to it, all of these will still load just fine. Nothing will change there. It just won't have whatever new thing I put in there that's going to be part of the save will just be default when you load it until you save it again with your settings. So it has to be in this folder, otherwise it won't import it correctly. It has to be in this folder, otherwise it won't import it correctly. And then you put it into the levels pack. So if you don't put it into the levels pack and you don't have a levels pack and you just have one level and you want to import it, then you just make sure it's in this folder the way it is. So if you want to import one level at a time, then you can go back here, you can go to import, and here you can see I have now this folder. I can import it, and the rule is it has to be _ export. This part of the file name, you can't change that. As long as it says this, then you can import it. Then this is your save name, but then this right here is the scene name. So this right here means that it's this ISS exterior. So it will only show up here. So if I go to another level and I want to import, so we know that that's there, but because it's here, but as you can see it only goes here in the ISS exterior. So if you want to import them one at a time, it has to be the correct level for this level, this scene. It has to be a save designed for this scene, and then you can import it that way. If you want to put one level in and you don't want to come to the scene it's for, you just want to put it in, you can go to this import levels pack and you can just have a levels pack, any levels pack. You can throw it in there. So if I just throw it in this levels pack up here, and then when I import this levels pack, if there's things in there that have the same file name as what's already in my game, it will not overwrite it. So if you imported a levels pack one time and then you change some settings or something like that in it, but actually in there the file name is going to be the same. So if you want to re-import that levels pack, maybe because, well, you just threw a level in there so you don't have to go to the scene, if you changed other levels that were in there in your own save, then they will not overwrite it. They just won't get imported because it's already there. So the saves in the game are saved elsewhere. So if you want to load a game here, and you can see that it's a different list. So these are saved in users, go to yourself, app data, local low, go to the company name, which is TSM space, and then the game name, which is Ace Racers SP with no spaces. And then here you can see all of my saved games. These are old ones from before when I didn't have them one level at a time. So here you can see all the different scene names, and then inside of each one, I didn't play that one, is the saves that I have. See, these, both of these are .crs, so these are from before I had the ability to save the races and save the settings. So, we don't need to. Oh, I just deleted the starter levels pack. I hope I have one somewhere else. Otherwise I'll have to re-export everything again. Anyways, so that is the import levels pack. So on the instructions here, it tells you some new things as a result of the changes. So just going down the instructions, just kind of like a gameplay suggestion here, use the warp ship and warp hopper, and now the warp loader to place rings and obstacles, and then use the drones to fly around your obstacles or courses. And then you can view the config to learn the controls and functions. And in the pause menu, you can set the power of your ship. So, setting the power of the ship, if you get popped into the level, when you want to save your power settings, this will reset it back to default, and then you can just change these numbers. And even though it's very easy, low, normal, high, very high, those are just the defaults. So if you wanted to have different ones, for probably the most common reason I can think of is maybe you want one for racing around and one for docking, and then when you want to fly the build mode, the space mode around the warp ship, you might want a different configuration, because when you're in the warp ship, it flies differently. It's a totally different thing. It works different. There's friction. It doesn't use physics. Well, it uses kind of physics, but it's like not space physics. And it's third person, and you move around a lot faster. And it's designed so that you can easily see from every angle, and if you're trying to place objects, then you can get around and make your decisions. It's not really designed to be like a racing ship. It's more like a Minecraft ship. So if you wanted different settings for this and then the other one, then you could just set those up in here. Remember which ones those are. And then in addition to that, there's actually a few other toggles here. You can see it. I can turn on half rotation or double rotation, and that's one button that cycles through that. And then you can also turn on half flats, which only applies to the drone itself. And then your lateral thrusters are half power. So you can kind of get that. So you can see visually I have 4 thrusters going backwards, 4 thrusters going forwards. Where's my dang cameras? Yeah, so you can see I have 4 thrusters going the one direction, but only 2 thrusters going to the side. 2 thrusters going to the top and the bottom. So the more realistic, power level that should come from that is you have 50% of the power in your lateral thrusters. So by enabling half lats, you can see it blinking right here. Then you can have that. Otherwise, without half lats enabled, it's equal thrust in all directions. And then you can double your rotation or half your rotation. And that way, if you want to have half rotation and half lats for docking, but you don't want to change your power level, you can do it that way. Or if you're using your power levels for different settings and you want them for different courses, like one course you want to be really fast, one course you want to be really slow, but in there you want more options for settings. When you switch to space mode, you can use it that way. At some point I did consider that, half lats might be a course setting where you make the course and you say, I don't want people to play with equal thrust, I want this course to be designed for half lats thrust. Then maybe there could be a setting like that, but because the game is kind of built around having just a bunch of options, and here you can just change your power levels. Well, these power levels are a similar kind of course design theory thing where, your course might be designed for a particular power level, and if you crank it up, then it's different. It's not really the same thing anymore. So kind of the same deal there, where it's kind of the honor system anyways, so maybe I won't try to make a setting for that. So here's the controls menu. I've sorted the controls so that it should be a little bit easier to learn them. So your default stuff is just, pause, reset, main menu. Ship controls is just for driving around. And then you also have dock, half thrust, half rotation, power levels. And in the camera controls, there's kind of a lot, but I was really bent on having lots of camera options and camera controls. So in the future, I would like to get a flight recorder that records your flight. And then in the game, you can see over here, I have one right here. What's going on here? My controller disconnected. So in the game is these player placeable cameras. What the heck? Oh. Now it's working. Okay, so there's these player placeable cameras, and here's one you can see right there, and it's just a block with a blue thing coming out of it. Over here's a red camera, and if I do get to a flight recorder, then I'll probably put a couple more of these in here. So these player placeable cameras, you can just switch to them, and there you can see my drone. You know, and actually I can fly now through the little camera to get a little closer so you can see it. So when I put a replay system in there, what I want to be able to do is during the replay you can switch to all different cameras, and then you can record using OBS or something like that your flight through the replay, and then you can have these player placeable cameras around, and you can get all different angles of your flight, and then you can focus on the camera controls, and that way you don't have to focus on flying when you're trying to focus on the camera controls. You can record your performance till you get a really good one, and then you can have all different camera controls. So another camera is there's this camera where you can manually rotate it, you can zoom it. There's this camera that you can't do anything. Well, you can use the mouse to do stuff, but that stuff is wild. This camera is totally wild. It has a mind of its own. Then there's this camera here, which you can use the joystick. It's a little jittery. I'm not really sure how to deal with the jitter, but you can see that I can point it and then it'll recenter. So if I can get that jitter settled down with some kind of damping of my joystick input is just really jittery like that, then this would be a cool camera because it goes back where you recenters. It's directly tied to the position of the joystick. So that'd be a cool camera to fly through. And you have a regular FPV camera that's not. It's only mounted. Some of the other vehicles have some more cameras, but then you also have these player placeable cameras that you can switch to. Okay, so going back to the menu here. So this levels pack will put levels into several of these, and you'll have to go find them. And then the rock hopper menu is just all the rock hopper, and then the loader test is actually where there's a few more cameras. So there's this camera here that's in the other one, and it comes around, but then there's also this camera here, which is just like that other snap look one that's tied directly. And additionally, let me see here. Yeah, so then there's another camera that moves, but then it stays where you leave it. And so, of course, you can see that there's a camera on top of the stick up here. That little head up there on top of that thing is like a camera mount. That's where the cameras go. And then when you fly this vehicle around, oh, my stuff isn't working. So, I don't know what happened. I must have... No, because these are still working. I don't know why my ship won't fly right now. Something's going on. My ship won't fly. I wonder if I have a button stuck somewhere. Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So I guess I'll just call that video a close. I did kind of walk you through how to get the stuff. I'll probably have to just restart the game for my controls to work. I'm not sure why the controls are frozen. No, the buttons are working, but for some reason the joystick inputs aren't working. And I'm just not sure what's going on there. So, oh no. That's nothing to do with my code. That kind of bug, I just can't fix it. That's just something to do with Unity, I guess. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's kind of a crazy thing. But if you just get a bug like that, it's never going to be something I can fix. You just have to restart the game. Probably just some instability in the software somewhere. I don't know. Okay, so actually I'm going to go on a little bit now that the controls are working again. So you can cycle here through your race type. You see number of laps, and when I'm on number of laps, I can change the number of laps. Get rotation stabilization on here so that it stays still. So my number of laps, you can see, is changed here from a button. And then my timer type, it can count on the first gate, count on the reset after a countdown, manual timer start and stop. You can see I do have a rotation stabilization in here. This rotation stabilization is something I need to tune. You can see with this big boy right here, it takes a long time to stabilize, but I kind of like that. And you can see that I have these rotation bars right here, so you can see your acceleration. This actually does not show your acceleration, it shows you, or your inputs, it shows you your actual rotation velocity. So you can see the bars on the left is lit. So if I go to the right, it'll cancel that leftward momentum, and then you can see the bar going down is lit. So then if I go up, it'll cancel that momentum. And you can see that it actually takes a long time for, even at full thrust to cancel the momentum at this particular normal setting. So once again, you can always just go say, hey, I want to crank it up, throw some huge numbers in there. It'll work just fine. There's a bunch of problems with Unity, with video games in general, where because if you go really fast, you don't occupy the whole space. It renders you at one frame, and then it renders you at another frame, and the physics engine says, here you are, and then it says, here you are over here, but it doesn't ever say, here you are in between those two. And there's workarounds, there's things that you can do to make it so that it reads you in between those two places. But I've found that it actually still doesn't even work. I mean, maybe it works a little better, maybe not. In my experience, if you crank the power for the ship settings up high enough, you go flying through the gates, they just don't register you. So I did do a bunch of things to make it so you can go faster and go through them. Namely, I made stacks of detection meshes. But now what the problem is that if you miss and you bounce off it or something like that, you might erroneously trigger saying that you went through it, because in order to make it so that the gate more reliably detects the player, I'll turn rotation stabilization on, I had to have direction check meshes quite far out from each side of the gate, and then I had to have the ship quite long, so that if it went all the way through from one side to the other, then part of it would still be there, even though it's not there. The invisible part, this invisible tail, would still be there. So if you whack into the gate and you swing that invisible tail around, you might trigger the gate as going through it. It shouldn't really matter though, because even though you might trigger that gate as going through it, the reality is you've whacked into the gate already. So if somebody doesn't whack into the gate, and then you don't have to turn around and go all the way back through that gate because it triggered, you're probably still not going to be able to catch them unless they whack into a gate too, and then it'll probably erroneously trigger for them too, so it should still be okay in that kind of fair sense. So I guess I don't understand why. Yeah, there's just some things about this game's stability that has nothing to do with my code, because you can see that if I change this volume and then I go to the main menu, it should stay. Once in a did have problems. I had lost a RAM stick, went out, so maybe the problem is my RAM is bad. I need to buy some more RAM that I'm gonna put in. So maybe this will be good RAM. Maybe that'll fix it. I don't know, because maybe it's just my RAM stability.